I think people were just generally very disillusioned. A lot of people who liked the classic country stuff, which I discovered in sort of early mid '80s, were just disappointed at what country music had become and how country radio had become this kind of soft rock, uh, Republican music. All the songs about God and trucks and flags and stuff like that. And the stuff we liked was about drinking and cheating and killing. So.
Welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party, your weekly musical happy hour where musicians pick an album from their back catalog and tell the stories behind their favorite tracks in front of a live online audience.
This week we talk with legendary punk and alternative country songwriter Jon Langford. We revisit his 2011 album and art book, Skull Orchard Revisited, talk about how his Welsh roots shaped the songs, and what it was like to record and tour with 30 male drunk choir singers. So pour a beverage, grab a snack, and kick back as we listen to music together here on the Back Catalog Listening Party, where it's always Friday and old albums never sounded better.
Hey, this is Anthony, one of your hosts, just popping in to let you know that we experienced some technical difficulties with Jon's audio and his internet connection during this interview. And unfortunately, his audio is a little bit rough at times, but the conversation and the music are fantastic. So we hope you enjoy this wonderful interview and listening party with Jon Langford.
All right. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us from his home in Chicago, Jon Langford.
Wow.
Welcome.
Hello.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. And I'm just going to be even better now that you're here and now that we're all here. And
Yes.
We're so excited to kick off this musical happy hour.
This isn't actually my home. This is my place of work. This is my painting studio. So I'm sitting
very
here.
nice. We look forward to talking with you about your artwork and your music and dig into one of your old records, which is what we do here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. And we want to say hi to some of the folks that have gotten to the party early. Chris joining us with a glass of red wine. Sounds good to me. Connie joining us from Richfield.
Hey, Connie.
And Joe from South Minneapolis, Modelo Negro, right by the keyboard. All right.
Hey, Joe. Great to see you.
Great to see you. And
Sounds
if
good.
you just joined the Back Catalog Listening Party, tell us, if you're enjoying a beverage or a snack, where you're tuned in from. And I can tell you that I'm enjoying my summertime vibes. I'm having a peach gin and tonic, getting fancy for a Wednesday.
All right.
Yeah.
It's August after all. Jon, are you partaking in any beverages?
Grapefruit soda.
Ooh,
delicious.
That sounds like a good summer drink.
It's all I could find. It's a big letdown.
But we asked Jon if he could turn his air conditioning off before we came on. So I'm glad you're hydrating, Jon. I appreciate that. I'm going with a hazy IPA from the Athletic Brewing Company. It's an NA IPA, but it's very refreshing in my Back Catalog Listening Party pint glass.
Excellent. And Paul's joining us from Prince Rupert, BC. So hello.
Welcome, Paul.
Randy also joining us from British Columbia with a glass of red wine. We're so excited that you all are here. And feel free to chime in the comments throughout the show with questions, comments, anything like that. And it looks like we got another South Minneapolis person join us as well.
Ooh, Fudgesicle. All right, Alex.
Yeah, that's a good summertime treat. I like it. Well, again, we're so excited to have Jon Langford joining us, and he's done a lot of different kinds of music over his career. Jon, maybe you could start by just giving us a little brief origin story, where you grew up, how you fell into making music, and maybe where the record that we're going to talk about fits into that.
I lived in Newport, a seaport town on the south coast of Wales, an industrial town. I went away in 1976 up to Leeds to be an art student, and that's where I met the Mekons. And we all threw away our paintbrushes because punk rock happened. 15 years later, I found myself coming to America a lot because the Mekons were sort of popular over here. We signed a major deal over here with A&M Records, which ended in typical disaster. But I was living in Chicago, and I started writing a load of songs. And I had a band here called the Wake Up Brothers, and that was more of a hard country band. And the Mekons have been all sorts of different things over the years, from a hardcore sort of primitive punk band right the way through to being, almost like a folk performance troupe or something. Um, I started writing songs when I moved to Chicago, and I noticed they didn't fit anywhere. And all the songs seemed to be about my hometown of Newport, where I grew up. So that's where the Skull Orchard album comes from. And the album was recorded initially in 1997, came out on a small label that immediately went bankrupt and disappeared, and which is typical. Well, and
Yeah.
I had the master tape, so we actually digitized the master tapes in about 14 years ago, and we made a book. So I've done paintings that went along with the songs. The songs were very important to me on the record, and they fitted in with me being a visual artist as well. I did a lot of things I called song paintings, where they include the lyrics, and the subject matter is obviously the same as the song. And I think sometimes the songs and the paintings come from the same part of my brain. Uh,
Hmm.
we decided to make a book out of it. I've done did a couple of books before, a couple of things with a publisher who was actually in Portland, Oregon, but now he's in Hamburg. My friend Steve Connell, First Chorus Press, and he wanted to make uh, a book about the album. And at some point, I had fallen in with a bunch of expat people from Wales who were living in Toronto. A friend of mine had joined a male voice choir, and I had no idea such a thing existed, that there'd be a male voice choir outside Wales. And Julian Murray was singing in this choir. I think he sent me I think he sent me a postcard from the Cayman Islands or something. And I was sort of like, wow, I got to work this out. I want to look in the phone book for. I want to be in a male voice choir, because every village in Wales has a male voice choir. So there's not one in Chicago, but there's two in Toronto. And so anyway, we decided we needed to do something together. I needed to, and these songs were written with the homeland Wales in mind when I was writing them, and I realized they were all kind of like songs that could be kind of hymns, and they were meant for singing and meant for communal singing, because that is so important in Wales. And we actually got the choir to do a couple of gigs singing the stuff. Then we recorded it again with the choir, and that's the record that we're talking about now, Skull Orchard Revisited, which in its book form has a lot of text by my brother, by my photographs by my father, a short story by me, and kind of, a lot of paintings and images by me. And I don't know, it was kind of what it was meant to be. It became what it was meant to be after a long, slow, tortuous process.
Excellent.
Excellent. And we have you shared with us some of these word etchings and paintings and photos, and we'll be showing them throughout. But I just wanted to give people a little taste of what's in store, because we've got some really beautiful artwork here that we're going to be looking at alongside listening to some wonderful music.
Yeah. We're really excited about that. And we want to hear some music. We want to get the party started. And the first track that you picked to feature from this record is called Butter Song. Is there anything you want to say about this song before we take a listen?
I stole all the lyrics from Gertrude Stein, but I was working on a play with a theatre company here in Chicago, and these lyrics came up, and I just said, I'm having that. I want that, because it's Gertrude Stein writing in a sort of very random, kind of free form way, but it's very atmospheric, and for me it conjured up a lot of images from my childhood, small village life in Wales, and it reminded me a little bit of Dylan Thomas. It was Dylan Thomas without being Dylan Thomas. So here's the Butter Song. And the choir is called the Burlington Welsh Male Chorus, and they live in the sort of suburbs or towns around Chicago. And a lot of the guys were steel workers, people in the steel industry, or sailors, people who just relocated out of Britain around the same time that I left and went up to Leeds. A lot of these guys went in the 70s when the steel business was collapsing in Wales. And yeah, they were quite a crew. So you'll hear them on this.
Excellent. And we have two separate images that go along with this. Is there anything you want to say about those for those who are watching today?
Well, one is a self portrait,
I see that. That's great.
and the other one's on the wall by my. I can touch it. I'm reaching out and touching it.
This one here?
Yeah, look.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
stereo. It's incredible.
And what is the medium there? Is that a piece of wood then?
It's a big lump of wood painted with acrylics and oil pastels and office supplies.
Oh, that's amazing. If you're just listening to this program on the podcast version, know that we will be sharing links to his book and these images on our website, backcatalog.listeningparty.com. But I'm with Ellen. I think it's time for some music to get us going. And let me get the album art up here, and we're going to give it a spin. This is Jon Langford, Butter Song, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
All right. Wow, I love how that chord just like holds on there, the electric guitar. That was
Nice.
Jon Langford with the Burlington Welsh Male Choir with Butter Song from the album Skull Orchard Revisited. So this is the 2011 version with the Welsh Male Choir, and I love having those voices in there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does have a very kind of punk vibe, which when I first heard, oh, this is with a male choir, that's not really what I probably envisioned. So John, I'd love to know, like, was this unusual for them to like sing on a recording like this? Like, did you have to coach them a bit?
Well, no, it's very strange for them. They normally sing kind of light opera, hymns, and sort of folk songs. And this was an adventure for all of us. And like I said, Julian put it together. My friend from Newport, who was a punk rock pal from back home. But there's a friend of mine called Dave Nagler, who lives in New York City, and he told me that he was very interested in male voice choir music. So we went to see them at Carnegie Hall when they performed with Bryn Terfel in a thing called I think it was the 500 Voices, and it was fantastic. They had all these male voice choirs from all over the world, all Welsh male voice choirs, and some from Canada, a lot from Great Britain. And Bryn Terfel sang in front of them, and it was just awe-inspiring. But I noticed that we thought we should write some songs for them, or have some songs, or have them do some songs that are kind of. We thought we want to get involved in this somehow and kind of get into the genre and expand the catalogue a little bit and have more contemporary, kind of more interesting songs. That was what we humbly decided to do. Completely take over male voice choir music. So David wrote the arrangements that you heard there. You know, it's a beautiful instrument, but it's unwieldy, and they tend to get drunk and not be able to perform. And some of them faint when they get on stage under the hot lights, which is quite a problem. But
So speaking of the process, Joe was wondering about, he's loving how it sounds, so real and joyous and maybe a little something extra. And he just was kind of curious about the setting and the setup and how you actually physically were recording them.
we had to get a really big room, but there wasn't enough headphones because there's like 30 of them. So we had to pump the music back at them through monitors and then have them, I've done a lot with them now for the years, and I think the last time we played together was just before the pandemic, and we played the Fillmore in San Francisco, opening for Kurt Weill. And it was a really amazing night. It was great. But the sound engineers there kind of worked it out that this is a really difficult thing to capture.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up putting up about 25 microphones. So nearly everyone in the choir had their own microphone. And it took forever to set up. It was completely insane, but it sounded beautiful. And I've always tried to record them as a unit. I got a few mics for the different sections of the choir. But when we've done it live, it's sometimes you just can't hear it, and it's awful.
Mm.
So it was not without problems getting them down onto tape. So I've driven them with beer.
That usually works.
Yeah.
And Paul says, seeing John and the choir all crammed on the Horseshoe stage in Toronto is sight in itself to behold.
I bet.
Yeah, hoping to be doing that again pretty soon. We're trying to do something up there this year. So, like I said, we haven't done anything since before the pandemic, and I miss my choir boys. So we shall see.
Do they have to have like a separate bus then to get them to and from these shows?
They came to Chicago. The first time I even met them, they came down to Chicago on a bus for Celtic Fest, and
nice.
They turned up at the Hideout, all in their white shirts and their rugby ties, all sitting drinking loads of beer, and we sat outside the Hideout, and I kind of got to know them. And then the next day, we were in this, in Grant Park playing a festival. It was quite extraordinary. We've done some great things with it. The best was the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival. I think it was in 2008. where they went from backstage to backstage like a plague of locusts, drinking every backstage area dry, moving on to the next one, and ended up on stage with Elvis Costello, which was kind of fun.
Excellent.
He invited 40 men up on stage, which was great.
Which you have to be brave to do, to invite a drunken Welsh choir onto stage with you.
Yeah, and they didn't know the song.
They did
It was
after it was over, I'm sure.
Uh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
The Back Catalog Listening Party is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Supporting the show with small and large donations every month, this committed group of music lovers keep the party going and enjoy special perks like getting first look at our upcoming guests and invitations to private after parties and live stream performances with the artists. If you'd like to learn how you can become a patron of the show, please visit patreon.com/backcataloglisteningparty.
Well, if you just tuned into the Back Catalog Listening Party, just joining us, we are talking with Jon Langford about his second version of his album Skull Orchard, which was released in 2011, which he re-recorded with the Burlington Welsh Male Choir, and he's been talking about the joys and trials of recording with 40 men and bringing them on the road with him. And if you have any questions or comments for Jon during the show, feel free to drop it in the comments. And Christian just was chiming in to say multitasking, enjoying Jon, shooing away dogs, and making a Greek salad for supper. That sounds like
Perfect.
a good multitasking
And
thing.
David Naylor, who wrote the arrangements for the album, is actually tuned in. So I'm waving at
Oh,
him. I'm waving.
David, so great to have you here.
So, David, if you have any secrets you want to share, if you want to reveal during the show, feel free to throw them in the comments and let us know so that we can, or tell us what questions we need to be asking Jon about this recording.
I like to think of this show as a live liner notes, right? We get to make them up as we go along.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there that I should be answering.
Well, the next song that you picked to feature from this record is Youghal. We had to talk about how to pronounce that for those of you listening. It's spelled Youghal.
Just y'all.
Y'all.
All. Us banjo players know how to say that one.
That's right.
Is there anything you'd like to say about this one?
I'd just say the backstory to this one is the Mekons were traveling through Ireland, and I was fascinated by John Huston's film of Moby Dick, which was filmed in 1954. And rather than filming it in Nantucket or New Bedford, he chose Youghal in Southern Ireland. And the crew of the ship, or the crew that film, the actors and everyone, all stayed in this one pub, and we went to visit the pub. And the pub was now called Moby Dick's. And there's the picture you see of Gregory Peck there. That's taken from a publicity photograph of Gregory Peck that was on the wall of the bar. And it just said in whatever 1954 Sharpie, it just said "Death to Moby Dick" in big letters on it. So it was kind of inspiring. But it's a funny little town, and these guys there were all very proud of it. And John Huston had used a lot of the locals in the film as extras, and for me, it was very poignant because I've come from Wales, and a lot of most of the people I went to school with just left, and this is even more pronounced in a town like Youghal, where didn't seem to be many young people. Young people had left. So, and I knew a lot of kids in Ireland, from Ireland, in London, through the music business and stuff. All the Irish bands, all the kids, and lots of builders. They used to just come and turn up in London, on a wing and a prayer, in hope of making it in the big city, leaving Ireland behind. So this is the only song on the record that's not directly about South Wales, but also my hometown. There's a lot of Irish people in my hometown who came, kind of came as refugees almost, like after the potato famine. Some of them thought they were going to America, and they ended up in Newport. They used them as ballast in boats, cargo ships. When there were no potatoes to transport, they used people instead. So It's a pretty sad song, but Moby Dick's my favourite book, and the 1954 version is the best version ever made. So this is called Y'all.
All right. Jon Langford here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Death to Moby Dick, signed Gregory Peck, in and out of his makeup, with a whalebone for a leg. The little bar down by the quayside was a gold mine every day, just like sitting on an oil well when the motion picture people came to stay. White whaler, black hearts, out there hunting with the hounds. Caught much more with a camera, panned across the faces of the people hanging round. Got paid. There's no acting in the flat black eyes of old women watching as the Pequod sailed away. 40 summers died out of reach, but on a TV round the back we got a picture on a videotape of a big fish that never came back. So far from the heart of Europe, the young left long ago to look for work in London, Boston and Chicago.
Jon Langford with Y'all from his album Skull Orchard Revisited, featuring the Burlington Welsh Male Choir. And David Nagler, who did the arrangements, is joining us in the chat. And he says, Butter's song was the first song I arranged with a lot of call and response and overlap. Y'all was probably the second, which had a lot of space in this lovely end section. And I loved it. I loved how it almost sounded more like a sea song, like men working on a ship,
Yeah, it's a bit of a shanty, but I like Dave managed to write an arrangement where we could go bum 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 bum. It's quite funny. I thought, bum bum. It's a lovely lyric. I should mention the other people playing on it. Alan Doughty, who plays in the Wake Up Brothers, was in Jesus Jones, a very famous English band, played bass on that, and he still plays bass with me with the Wacos and most of my solo stuff. Steve Goulding plays with the Mekons, plays drums on it. Steve was most famous, I think, for playing Graham Parker and the Rumour back in the late 70s. And then he was in the Gang of Four for a bit. He's in loads of bands, but he's been with the Mekons since 1984. So, and Mark Durante, who was also in the Wake Up Brothers, played there's a steel guitar player in the Wake Up, but he plays electric guitar on that. And I think John Rice was playing the violin on that, a friend of ours from Chicago.
Excellent. Well, it sounds so good. And a lot of folks joining in the comments related to this song. Paul says, would you believe in the town next to mine, Terrace, someone constructed a miniature town of Youghal? Can't seem to post the pic, but here's a link to the story of this tiny town. So we'll have to share that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I actually met some people from Youghal over here, and it was really nice to, a lot of, yeah, people leave. It's one of those towns people leave. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, Randy asked if this is the song you did inside the whale on Route 66.
Yeah, there's on Route 66, there is actually, I think it's called the Blue Whale of Catoosa. And it's like, it's an attraction for people riding down Route 66. And there's a little slide coming out of it, which goes into an extremely polluted drainage ditch. So we didn't go down that. But there's two songs about whales on this album, which was kind of a joke because I come from a country called Wales. But there's Youghals about Moby Dick, but there was another song called Inside the Whale, and I sang both of those, Randy, inside the Blue Whale of Catoosa. That's true. And then the whale spat me out.
That's awesome. Thanks for your question, Randy. Now we know.
Yeah, that was on a Roots on the Rails trip. I did a bunch of things for a company called Roots on the Rails, where I got to tour on the on the trains. That one we did on a bus with me and Fred Eaglesmith in a bus going down Route 66. But some of the train trips have been really pretty spectacular. And I met Randy Sloan and his family on those trips. Sometimes I was playing with Tom Russell, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, Dave Alvin, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, Phil Alvin, a bunch of really cool people. So
yeah,
very, very cool. I bet you didn't have the Welsh choir with you on that trip, I'm guessing.
No, they wouldn't have fit in my sleeper
car. Well, Joe shared historical point of the day. There's a reference to Youghal and Cork singer Jimmy Crowley's song Johnny Jump Up. Got the vinyl to prove it. So
have to check it out.
Yeah, a lot of Youghal references. So thanks all. And again, we want to mention that if you just joined the back catalog listening party, feel free to throw any comments, questions for Jon Langford, our guest today, in the chat. And we will get to as many of them as we can. And we'll get to as many songs as we can because we're really digging this record. And if you are digging it, you want to buy it because you can buy the physical copy, get the high-res audio tracks, which sounds so good if you're listening the way we're listening. And also you can get the artwork and all of that good stuff if you go to the website that we have shared there, versechorus.com, and look for Skull Orchard Revisited.
And is it all in a book form, John? Like, is it like one big book, or is it all kind of tied together with a book and these
no, it's a
images?
book with a CD in the back.
Got it.
I did another book with that company. It's called Nashville Radio, and I put a CD in the back of that one, and people just thought it was a book of paintings. And it was pretty great because people would go, "I was looking in that book. There's a CD in the back." Yeah. And they wouldn't. They hadn't noticed it for about 10 years, but then they got a lovely surprise.
This is pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's a CD with a really flash cover, so that's what it is. The Skull Orchard.
Well, I recommend that everybody go out and get both books. If you're just listening, the website is versechorus.com. We'll have a link in our show notes at backcatalog.listeningparty.com.
Yeah, that's right. And John, I'd love to know a little bit more about your painting. Obviously, you have found a way to marry your music and your artwork a little bit, certainly on this project. But do you ever go through phases where you're like, I'm just into painting or just into songs, or do they always go hand in hand?
Since there was 15 years where I didn't really paint when I left art school and went on the road with the Mekons. When I got back into painting, the only way I could get back into it was thinking about it in the terms I thought about music and songwriting and imagining that a painting was like a song. it could have those elements. I really wasn't interested um, in, I don't know, in pursuing some kind of artistic thing that was outside of what I've been already working. I decided my sort of experiences in the Mekons and being signed to major labels were perhaps, and my love of music was perhaps the subject matter. And maybe the paintings could be like illustrations of that, or they could become like songs themselves. So that's what I did. I kicked down some walls in my head, and after that, it was kind of easy. I really liked painting and drawing, but I couldn't think of any useful reason for doing it. And then it's kind of like after the band got dropped by A&M Records, that was all I had. So
Art often comes out of necessity. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But it's I think of myself more as an illustrator. I've done a lot of album covers for people and stuff like that. And just did the new Dave Alvin, Jimmy Dale Gilmore album. So and they
nice.
pay me by letting me go out on the road supporting them. So I'm looking forward to that.
I love that. And Christian had a question for you. He said, how did a Welsh laddie become so in tune with American roots music from the WLS barn dance to Dave Alvin?
I would say that when I came to Chicago first, I was surprised at how involved in that whole thing. We sort of believed the hype of, Chicago's a blues town, Nashville's a country town, blah, blah, blah. But all these things are much more complicated. And there was the tail end of the WLS barn dance was still going on here when I first moved here. And there was people I met, like the Sundowners, who were a bunch of guys who did country and Western music, like proper three-part harmonies in a little bar 5 nights a week. They were just the loveliest people, and it was like the kind of opposite of the Blues Brothers movie. You go into this, I go to this country club, and it wasn't chicken wire up across the front of the stage, and they were really friendly, and they really welcomed us on stage to play with them, and we couldn't play anything, so I had to learn because I liked it so much. I thought punk rock. Well, I didn't. Somebody else told me this, but somebody said that the Mekons were like a country band because our songs all had three chords and they were all about drinking in bars or failed sexual relationships. And I thought that sounds pretty accurate. So that's where we got into country music pretty heavily. But by the time I moved to Chicago, I was kind of over it. But then I got sucked back up into something. So that's how the Wake Up Brothers came about.
That'll happen.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think people were just generally very disillusioned. A lot of people liked the classic country stuff, which I discovered in sort of early mid 80s. Were just disappointed at what country music had become and how country radio had become this kind of soft rock, uh, Republican music. All the songs about God and trucks and flags and stuff like that. And the stuff we liked was about drinking and cheating and killing. So.
Well, as someone who is involved in a lot of roots music here in the Twin Cities, my background was in punk rock music. I grew up in Minneapolis
Right.
listening to Husker Du and those kinds of bands, and found my way to roots music because I felt like there was a community element to the music that was very similar to what I felt when I'd go to First Avenue when I was a kid. Going to some of these bluegrass festivals felt the same way, a kinship. Do you see any parallels with roots music and punk music in that way?
Well, I just thought that the things we were trying to achieve with punk rock music, it was a reaction against sort of stadium rock and prog rock. It was all about virtuosity. We wanted to make something that, where you connected really directly with your audience. And suddenly, when I was listening to sort of people like Merle Haggard and George Jones, I was thinking the sort of elegant way in which they told stories that really reflected real life. And that's what we were trying to do. I think with the Mekons, we're trying to sort of sing songs that were about real experiences rather than, this sort of Friday night kind of crazy rock and roll, I'm so crazy stuff. It was, and yeah, I felt a sort of kinship, and I thought they did it so effortlessly, and they knew their audience, and they provided what their audience wanted, in a kind of interesting way.
Yeah. Well, we are really enjoying the music here on the Back Catalog Listening Party today with Jon Langford joining us from his home in Chicago and his art studio in Chicago. And this next song that you picked to feature from the record is Pill Sailor. Is there anything you want to say before we take a listen?
I was just saying, my mum used to yell out the window when I was walking down the street when I was about 15. She'd go, "You're not going down Pill, are you?" And Pill was Gwethley, which was the area down by the docks. And, it was the neighborhood by the docks. So it had everything at jazz clubs, reggae clubs, curry houses, bars that would serve beer to a 15-year-old boy. And also, like, mysteriously to me, these were bars for people getting off long, merchant sailors coming off long voyages, and they turn up in the bars, and it'd be funny. My dad would take me down there on Saturday morning to look at all the ships. During the height of the Cold War, there'd be ships with Soviet flags on them, and you'd see, the Soviet sailors would be in bars in town. And it was kind of interesting to be sort of part of that world. And anyway, yeah, it was a place I used to like to go, and I learned a lot down in Pill. So, and this song's about sailors getting off the boat and failing to get back on.
This is Jon Langford, Pill Sailor, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
A pitbull tattoo, one good eye of blue, that's wandering still, but what can you do? These ropes are all knotted and tangled round me. I'm a sailor who wandered a little too far from the sea. Did they raise up this child just to die? To stare for too long into one sky? Surely bassies from Tiger Bay, but I spend my nights down in Pill. They shut down the docks, thrown our lives on the rocks, but my good eye is wandering still. Past the pubs where I fester all day, will transport a bridge, transport me away. These ropes are all knotted and tangled round me. I'm a sailor who wandered a little too far from the sea. They passed in the channel, great ships by the score, to carry out coal and carry in ore. And at night these old sea legs were anxious to stray. They come from all over, but never intended to stay. So tell me something I don't know, and find me a skipper with somewhere to go. 'Cause these ropes are all knotted and tangled round me. I'm a sailor who wandered a little too far from the sea.
Yeah.
All right. Jon Langford with Pill Sailor, joined by the Burlington Welsh Male Choir from the 2011 album Skull Orchard Revisited, which was a redone version of the original album that came out in 1997. And you mentioned, obviously, you added these arrangements with the male choir. Was there anything else that, other than sort of remastering, did you re-record any other instrumental or vocal parts for this, or was it just using the
Yeah, there's
original
other on
masters?
there's other songs that aren't on the original album. There's a couple of
Mhm.
songs which didn't make it onto the original album because they weren't kind of completed, and we worked on them, and I like them with the choir. So I think that's why there was something
Mhm.
missing, so they didn't make it onto the original.
Mhm. Well, folks are loving this. Joni's loving the rock shanty, and Joe says, "Great song with a great story." And yeah, I kind of can't imagine it without that choir now. It
Yeah.
has such.
Well, it's I do it a lot when I play it on my own live. I kind of miss them. It's kind of a lonely experience. But it's a song about the community I grew up in. And that Joe Strummer liked that song because
Oh,
he
Mm.
lived
that's
in
something.
Newport. He told me he liked it, and he grew up in. He didn't grow up there. He went to live in Newport for a couple of years before he went down to London and formed the 101ers and then the Clash, and that's where he kind of learned how to play the guitar and learned his rock and roll down in my hometown. And he told me he used to go to a Barbadian restaurant, which was open late, and they'd have a cellar bar, and the reggae records would come straight in off the boat, off the banana boats from the West Indies, and these Jamaicans and Barbadian guys would play the new records, and they would toast over the top. Actually, kind of rap. That's where rap really came from in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
Was reggae toasting. And I just thought that was fantastic that, Strummer, sort of not single handedly, but I think he brought reggae into, into kind of reggae culture into British sort of rock and roll. And it made a big difference because pub rock was kind of about having a good time on a Friday night. Prog rock was about elves and wizards. And reggae music was about real life. And Strummer brought that in, and that inspired me a lot to write songs about, real situations in real life. And it came from, that comes from growing up in a very cosmopolitan town. There's a reason the Beatles are from Liverpool, because they got hold of all that music because it was coming in on through the docks.
The Back Catalog Listening Party is brought to you by EFS Publicity. Founded by veteran publicist, promoter, DJ, and musician Ellen Stanley, EFS brings an artist's perspective to the table, working to help clients get to the next level in their career. Services include national and international media campaigns, radio promotions, tour press, crowdfunding, grant writing, and more. Get a quote or set up a consultation today at efspublicity.com. This is so much fun to dig into these songs. Again, Jon Langford joining us today on the Back Catalog Listening Party, revisiting his Skull Orchard Revisited record. And I want to take this opportunity. We're going to get to at least one more song here, but we want to take this opportunity to thank all the folks that make this show possible. We started this show, during the pandemic when we couldn't see each other in person, but folks loved hanging out with each other so much and listening to records together and getting the artists' insights. And these folks have kept the show going during all that time. Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, CJ, Wiley, Stephanie, Christy, Diane, Hetty, Sandy, and maybe you. If you would like to join our mighty crew that keeps this ship sailing every week, then you can go to patreon.com/back catalog listening party or go to backcatalog.listeningparty.com and join our Patreon crew. And you can pick up one of those fancy Founders pint glasses that Anthony is sporting
I'm
over
on my
there.
second now, but
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Sign of a good happy hour here.
that's right.
And again, you'll get invites to the live tapings and other special events with artists. So if you want to join that, we would be appreciative. But mainly, we're just glad you're here with us, listening to music with us, because that's what it's all about here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. And it's Jon, such a treat to have you joining us, because this is what makes the show special, getting these stories behind the songs and how you recorded them and what went into the making of these songs, and especially this album, which obviously is such a personal place in
Yeah,
your heart. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Well, the next song that you picked is Tom Jones Levitation, and the title alone evokes something. So what can you tell us about this song?
Well, there is a preamble to this song, but I'm not going to do it because we haven't got long. But It's about Tom Jones finding out that the Welsh people have elected him president of Wales. And his little arms start to flap, and he flies up through the dressing room window of Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas and flies under his own power across the America and across the Atlantic, and lands back in Wales, and then sings this song as a duet with the Welsh people. The Welsh people start it, and then Tom answers. And
That's
it's, I would say it's a critique of the tradition of making the king's son Prince of Wales when they're not really Welsh.
And for those who are watching, we're looking at one of your pieces of art, and this is actually what made the cover of the record. Was this
Yeah,
also the cover of the
that's an
original as
etching.
well?
That's an etching called Tom Jones Levitation. I've got a Tom Jones joke if you want to hear it.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
Okay, I went to the doctor's this morning, and I said to the doctor, I can't stop singing Green, Green Grass of Home and Delilah. And the doctor said, you have a bad case of Tom Jones-itis. And I said, is that common? And he says, well, it's not unusual. I think there's a delayed reaction there, but that seems to go down quite well.
I don't have my rim shot ready, but
Just
we do
listen
have
to the
applause
song.
here.
Just listen to the song. Yeah, we told the joke.
All right. Well, I'm going to get the actual cover up, which is referencing this beautiful etching. And now let's give it a spin. This is Jon Langford, Tom Jones, Levitation here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
All right. That was Tom Jones Levitation by Jon Langford from his album Skull Orchard Revisited with the Burlington Welsh Male Choir. So good. What a
Really
great song. And I
yeah.
love the BBC bit in there. Really, really
That was
great.
Sally from the Mekons.
Love
Oh,
that.
nice.
Love that. And Connie says, terrific music. Thanks for a great show. And Paul wanted to know, do you have any other plans to record with the boys, with the male choir?
Well, we've done 2 singles since then.
Mhm.
So 4 tracks are recorded. I want to do, in the end, I would like to do a whole album. This is songs that I basically wrote for them. So there's one called Only the River Will Carry You Home, which is, we realized that a good male voice choir song has to mention home and river. And then my hometown has a river going through it. So it's quite good. I like the
Yeah.
kind of cloying sentimentality of it. It's all very Welsh. Yeah, you can undercut it with some pithy stuff as well. It's quite good. It's quite a good genre. It's a rich vein.
Yeah, a lot to work with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I would love to hear some more. And Joe says, wow, the choral here is fantastic. Uh some guys who did those loose
Oh,
rowdy
I think he's wondering if it's the
same guys. Yeah,
same
yeah.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, I think. So really,
yeah.
really great stuff. And again, if you want to pick up this album or the book with all the artwork, all of that, we have shared a link for that. Also, we have shared a link in the chat, and we'll have it on our show notes of how to keep tabs on all the many things John is doing, because he has a couple bands, he plays solo, he has the artwork, and probably has 5 other things cooking that we don't know about and haven't gotten a chance to talk about. So
That's true.
you
That's
can
true.
and so you can find him there. And John, we're just so pleased that you were able to join us and spend an hour talking about this record, because
Well, we were going to do it when the Waco brothers were up in town, but this is good to do it now. It's great.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
very much, Mother Banjo and Anthony. Lovely to
Oh,
meet you.
this has been our honor. This has been super fun.
Super fun.
I'm with Chris here. Super interesting. I've learned a lot too. And it's like every time I listen to an album and then talk to the artist and then listen back to the album, it's like I'm experiencing it again in a whole new way. And that's one of my hopes for people who are going to listen to the album after this, after listening to this podcast, because it does
Well, it's
change
up on all
things.
the streaming sites now. It wasn't for a while, but you can get the original album and you can get this one up on the streaming sites. And if anyone's interested in the artwork, Yard Dog in Austin is the gallery I've been showing with for the last 25 years. So if you go to yarddog.com, they've got all my stuff. See,
Excellent.
like,
And we'll
Nice.
put
I did the blatant commercial thing there.
good. Good job.
You got to get your art out there.
Yeah, and we'll definitely share that link in our show notes again. If you just catching the tail end or listening back on the podcast at some point, we have all of this in the show notes at backcataloglisteningparty.com, links to all of the stuff and all that good stuff. So make sure to check that out. And again, thank you so much to all of you for joining us today for this special listening party. And again, if you want to know more about getting invited to live tapings, you can join our Patreon. And of course, you can subscribe to the podcast on all the places. And mainly, just thanks for being here. And we hope to see you back next week for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Yeah. Thanks, John. And thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
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 Thanks for joining us on the Back Catalog Listening Party. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, which helps more people discover our show and our guests.
And do you want to be a part of the live show, get a first look at upcoming guests, and receive invites to private online parties and live streams? Then join our Patreon community at backcataloglisteningparty.com.
Have a great week. We'll see you back here next Friday for another edition of the Back Catalog Listening Party.